On June 8, 2023, NOAA issued what is known as an El Niño advisory, in which the weather agency warns that a phenomenon called El Niño was beginning to develop in the Pacific Ocean and that it had potential to have massive domino effects on weather all over the world. These effects included everything from droughts to wildfires to increased hurricane activity and even increased global temperatures as a result. But what exactly is El Nino, and why does it cause such massive global impacts? To understand that, we need to look at some very subtle temperature fluctuations in a small region of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. But before we get into that, I'd appreciate you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for future content. Okay, so why is this area in the Pacific important? Well, it's not so much the region itself that's causing problems as opposed to what it's telling us about the atmosphere above it. You see, in the equatorial zone, there exists a phenomenon called the trade winds, and contrary to the mid latitudes where wind blows from west to east, the trade winds blow from east to west at the equator. How strong or weak these winds are drastically affects weather all over the world, which we'll get into in a bit. The interesting thing is, thanks to a process where cold water rises to the surface, we can tell how strong these winds are based on how warm the water there is compared to average. When the trade winds are weaker, warm water isn't pulled westward like it usually is, and thus that area of ocean off South America is warmer than average, which is El Nino. On the other hand, when trade winds are stronger, warm water is more readily pulled westward, which causes the waters off South America to cool, a phenomenon known as La Nina. Typically, an El Nino or La Nina is declared when ocean temperatures are zero point 0.5 degrees Celsius or zero point 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer or colder than the baseline for the region. So, what are the effects of each pattern? Well, each type impacts weather all over the world. Starting in North America, El Nino years tend to produce wetter weather for the southern US and Mexico, and drier and warmer winters for the northern US and Canada. Additionally, El Nino produces more inhospitable conditions for hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, usually leading to below average activity there. But, as you may expect, the warmer water increases activity in the Pacific. As a result, you may have Florida and Texas getting fewer hurricanes, but Arizona and California getting more leftover remnant moisture from dissipating tropical storms. This correlates to the Western Pacific as well, which means it is not unusual for typhoons to become more powerful and land more frequently in Asian countries. In Australia, El Nino years are typically associated with the brutal droughts that have caused devastating bushfires in the outback. Finally, El Nino causes warmer global temperatures on average, with an increase of about zero point 0.1 degrees Celsius compared to a typical non-El Nino year. As you may expect, La Nina's impacts are just about the opposite everywhere. This means drier and warmer weathers for the southern United States, and wetter and colder weather in the northern US. In addition, some of the most active Atlantic hurricane seasons on record have happened in La Nina years, such as the hyperactive 2017 hurricane season that produced multiple devastating Category 5 hurricanes. La Nina years are also known for fostering droughts that can occur over the western US, and multiple La Nina years in a row are blamed for kickstarting the historic ongoing mega drought that is plaguing the region and forcing states to make potentially painful decisions regarding water cuts. Australia tends to get flooding rainfall, and the planet overall is just a hair cooler during a La Nina year as well. So, with all this in mind, what is the state of the atmosphere right now? Well, we have just exited from a triple dip La Nina, which is something that has happened only 2 other times in recorded history. That extended cool phase is now coming to an end, and in the El Nino advisory, NOAA warns that the Eastern Pacific has already topped the zero point 0.5 degrees Celsius threshold for an El Nino to be met. They also say that this El Nino may become one of the strongest ever, with water temperatures potentially 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above the baseline, which would put it on par with notable El Ninos like 1998 and 2016. These events both caused cataclysmic changes to global weather patterns, and in the case of 1998, led to a massive coral bleaching event in the Pacific that it still has not recovered from. But this El Nino could be different for one big reason. Because of the increased global temperatures El Nino is likely to cause, 2024 is likely to not just be Earth's hottest year in recorded history, but there is also a chance that it temporarily breaches the milestone of having warmed 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels. This is critical because in 2015, when the Paris Accords were signed, 1.5 degrees was considered a critical threshold past which mitigating the effects of climate change would become significantly harder and more expensive to pull off. Now, this breach will likely only be temporary, and once the ocean cools, the planet will slip under 1.5 degrees. But before long, the planet may become permanently above this threshold, and this will make many of the effects of climate change borderline impossible to combat with current technology. As a result, it is imperative that action be taken as soon as possible so that we can do the best we can to stave off the worst effects of climate change. And with that extremely positive note, that is all I have to say about El Nino. As always, I would appreciate if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for future content. Thanks and have a great day.